So, this is where it all happened.
This is the very central part of Sofia, the area you've probably seen in the news, in articles, on social media, connected to the recent protests and political changes in Bulgaria. And I wanted to start the video exactly here, because if you're watching this from outside the country, what you imagine when you read these headlines is usually very different from what this place actually looks like. I filmed this on December 26th and 27th, the Christmas holidays, and on these days Sofia surprised us with snow. And actually snow like this is sort of rare here these days. Usually it's in January or February, and even then it melts quickly. So in almost 2 years of living here, I don't even have much footage like this. But today everything is white, quiet and calm. So I decided to go out and film a little bit. If you're new to the channel, my name is Olga, and for the last 8 years I've been traveling and living in different countries in Europe and Asia, and in the last 5 years, together with my husband Rene, we've lived long-term in Antalya, Turkey, and in Da Nang, Vietnam. Now we are here in Bulgaria, showing you the realities of living here and helping everyone who wants to make the same move. Recently, in December, Bulgaria went through political shifts that included public protests and eventually the resignation of the government. That alone is enough to sound worrying, especially if you're not here and you're following this through the media. And I know it raised concerns because recently I've been getting a lot of questions about this, both in my one-on-one consultations and inside my expat group. People who are planning to relocate here, people who are already mid-process, and especially for non-EU citizens, for whom relocation is sometimes a 2-year plan. What actually surprised me is that when the first client asked me what's going on in Bulgaria right now, I didn't immediately understand the question, and for a moment I honestly thought, what do I even reply? Because for us, living here, nothing had changed. Daily life looked exactly the same. But then I put myself in their shoes. You're outside the country, you're reading the news, you're seeing dramatic headlines, thumbnails, comments. And when relocation is already a big decision, that kind of information easily turns into an anxiety. All media works on sensationalism. And that's just how our attention works. And I know this very well because I make YouTube videos too. And the more dramatic the title and thumbnail, the more views you're gonna get. The downside is that this constant layer of drama, it gets poured on us every day through television, YouTube, social media, and it adds to our anxiety. And relocation already comes with enough anxiety on its own. Paperwork, timelines, uncertainty, and adding political fear on top of that doesn't help people make better decisions. That's why I wanted to show reality instead of speculating. I want to be clear about one thing, because this applies not just to this video, but to my channel in general, is that I make videos mostly from a foreigner's point of view. I don't try to pretend that my life here is exactly the same as the life of locals, because it isn't. And it wouldn't be honest to present it that way. I've been an expat for more than 8 years now, and I've lived in many countries, and there's a pattern that repeats itself almost everywhere. Locals have their problems, foreigners have theirs. And they are not always the same. It doesn't matter how well you integrate, it doesn't matter how long you stay, you always have a different set of challenges than someone who was born and raised here. From my experience, the only situation where integration can become almost complete is when you're married to a local. But otherwise, even with language skills, friendships, and years in the country, there is often still a gap. And this isn't specific to Bulgaria, and I've seen the same story repeat itself in different countries over and over again. That's why for someone planning to relocate, it can actually be more helpful to see how other foreigners are adjusting. what daily life looks like for them, instead of trying to imagine that life will feel exactly like it does for locals. Because even talking to locals doesn't give you the full picture, because they don't know the struggles foreigners have in their country and take a lot of positive sides for granted because they just always had them. This is the city center on December 26th. Public transport is working as usual, the metro is on schedule, there's not much traffic, but that's actually normal for the first day of the holidays. People are outside, cafes are open, restaurants are full, no curfews, no damage, no disruption. If you weren't actively following the news, you would barely notice that anything political had happened at all. Life here looks completely the same. One thing I think is important to say out loud, especially for expats, is about safety. Bulgaria has a relatively strict immigration system, and that matters more than people think. If someone is running from something, they are much more likely to hide out in places like Cambodia or the Philippines. Basically, countries where visas and residency are very easy to get and checks are minimal. Bulgaria is not that kind of place. For EU citizens, residency is relatively fast with the right paperwork. For non-EU citizens, it can take a couple of years of planning. Even retirees or people who already own a business abroad usually need 6 to 8 months minimum, or even longer if they got unlucky with their immigration lawyer and he's not very fast with processing the paperwork and replying to emails. And believe me, I've heard my fair share of stories like that. Bulgaria is not a country you casually drift into. You really have to be sure you want to be here and ready to commit.
And actually, half the time when I talk to my clients who really want Bulgaria, because surprisingly, many of them come very well prepared. They did a lot of research, they made like a whole list of countries and weighed pros and cons. And Bulgaria comes on top of their list, but even then, in half of the cases, I still recommend that they look at other countries, because just time and money-wise, Bulgaria wouldn't make sense for them. But it's definitely not because of the politics, like 100%. Because as a foreigner, it just doesn't affect you so much. If you're a foreigner who has a remote income or a foreign business outside Bulgaria, then local politics almost don't touch you. And most of my clients are like that, or retirees. So to them, the recent protests, they did not change anything.
And I'll give you a very recent, very simple example. Just before Christmas, we went on a short 2-night trip to a local spa hotel, and it was a Christmas present for my husband from me. While we were there, I started talking to another guest, a retired woman from the US, and she comes to Bulgaria every year for a holiday. Her mother is Bulgarian, but she grew up in the US and doesn't even speak the language. Because so many of my clients have been asking about the protests, I decided to also ask her if she had any concerns before coming this time. And it turned out she hadn't even heard about protests. She flew in with her husband, they went through the airport, rented a car, drove to the hotel, checked in, and at no point did she even know that there had been protests or political changes. For her, as a visitor, nothing felt different, and that really says a lot. There's another part of the story that often gets lost when you only look at headlines. And when you read local news, comments, and discussions in Bulgarian, or when you talk to people here, a lot of voices behind these protests are actually young Bulgarians. People who don't want to leave, people who are tired of the idea that the only way to have a decent life is to move to Western Europe, work there for years, and maybe come back later or never come back at all. They want to stay here, they want to raise their children in their home country, they want to build their lives here, and that matters. Because this tells you that this isn't about rejecting the country, it's about frustration with corruption, frustration with stagnation, and frustration with always waiting for progress. From my perspective as a foreigner, I actually see this as something positive. Not because I know how it will turn out, because nobody does, but because young people wanting to stay and speak up is a sign of attachment and not instability. What kind of change this will bring is still unknown, and anyone claiming certainty is just guessing. But this doesn't make me feel unsafe living here. After the resignation of the government, all proposed changes are effectively on pause, and nothing new is being pushed through, nothing radical is happening overnight. From a practical point of view, that means less immediate change, not more. Residency rules didn't suddenly change, taxes didn't suddenly change, and daily life didn't suddenly change as well. I stopped at one of the popular central coffee shops today, and a lot of people are worried about prices, especially with the adoption of the euro planned for 2026. I do plan to make a separate video about it, but from what I personally see, prices in places like this have been slowly rising over the past 2 years and are gradually becoming more similar to Western Europe, although they are still lower. Just a couple of months ago, I went on a short trip to Vienna, and there I was spending noticeably more on everyday things like coffee and food, transportation. So I'm comparing current prices in Bulgaria with current prices in Western Europe. Sometimes I hear from foreigners who relocated here 5 or 10 years ago that prices in Bulgaria are now the same as in Western Europe. And every time I hear that, I think to myself, maybe you're comparing Bulgaria today to Western Europe from 5 years ago. Because if you look at prices in Western Europe now, they are still clearly higher, especially when it comes to rent and taxes. Over time, I do expect Bulgaria to move closer to Western Europe in terms of cost of living, and that's a normal part of development, and we already seeing it. But despite that, I still personally feel much safer and more comfortable living here. Next year will bring changes, and a digital nomad visa will make it easier for non-EU digital nomads to come and see whether Bulgaria could be their home base. But because it's limited in time, you will still need to look into long-term residency options. For non-EU citizens, residency rules are getting stricter, and for some people, that will mean Bulgaria won't be realistic anymore. And the adoption of euro is another long-awaited change, and there's a lot of speculation about how it will affect prices. For EU citizens, it will mean fewer exchange fees and more transparency, but if your income comes from outside of Bulgaria, local political shifts usually have very little effect on your day-to-day life. I didn't make this video to predict the future. I made it to show you what life actually looks like here right now from a foreigner's point of view, to give you a peace of mind. Because relocation decisions shouldn't be driven by headlines and fear. They should be based on reality. And right now, on a snowy Christmas day in Sofia, life feels normal. If you're still unsure whether moving to Bulgaria is right for you, this video covers the pros and cons, including costs, taxes, healthcare, and who probably shouldn't be moving here.